Thanks for joining me this morning, y'all. I appreciate it. We had our session yesterday talking about the buyer agreements that must be signed. You have exclusive or non-exclusive buyer brokerage agreement, right? There's also the customer agreement. I didn't have a slide of that up there, but you can use that as well. But this morning I want to focus on the easy showing authorization. Where you can find it. Okay, Brokerment, if you go to the library section when you're in Brokerment. It's on the left side, click on library. It has its own easy showing authorization folder. It's right there, right? So it's right there for you to use. It is also loaded into Remind in packages. So I got my little training thing. If you go to add a form and you click on packages, you can come up here. You will go to Century 21 Connect Realty, and there is your easy showing authorization form for you to download in Docs Plus, right? So trying to make it as easy as possible for you to get it. It's already loaded and everything for you. I wouldn't recommend printing it off necessarily, like printing off 50 of them just so you have them. There may be tweaks to this form as we go, right? So I'm gonna open it up and just kind of go through it real quick here. The buyers understand and authorize this authorization is not intended to create a buyer brokerage relationship, right? So it is explicitly, it is more like a customer agreement, right? And then of course you have the legal language that everything must have, you know, the mutual promises. It has a start date, right? Agreement shall begin upon execution by all parties. This agreement is only valid for the properties that are referenced in it. Compensation paid to broker is negotiable and not set by state law. That's the new language that GAR that Seth Weissman is using, you know, in with all of the listing agreements and buyer brokerage agreements. And then upon a successful closing of the property referenced herein, buyer shall compensate the broker X of blank of the purchase price, whatever you can negotiate, right? And then it goes on to say buyer approves of the broker receiving compensation from seller and or seller's broker, right? Compensation the broker receives from the seller or seller's broker shall reduce the compensation buyer agrees to pay broker dollar for dollar, right? So we're clearing up all of these questions that may be asked about, well, do I owe 1% plus the 3% that the seller will pay, or how does that work, right? We're trying to answer all the questions, very clean, simple language, not all the extra legal stuff, right? Buyer agrees to allow broker to negotiate all compensation paid by seller or seller's broker within the purchase and sale agreement. So they're authorizing you to negotiate the 3% that's in this authorization form in the purchase and sale agreement, in the price. So you can have it in special steps. You can use special step 620, right? And just include it in there. Maximum compensation paid by seller or seller's broker shall not exceed 3%. And then this agreement has valid for 30 days from execution, right? So it has a start date, has an end date, has everybody agreeing to everything and how you will be paid. So it covers all the bases of the lawsuit and having a buyer agreement signed prior to opening the first door, right? Nothing herein should be interpreted as a promise by the seller or seller's broker to offer to pay compensation to broker. And then there's the property list, buyer, agent, sign date, move along. Now I've had multiple requests for extra lines to be added, right? You can put more than one address per line. It says herein. So I don't care if you write the addresses all over here.
Oh, okay.
It's on the form. It's been signed by all parties. Make sure you give the buyer a copy of this as well. Right? So you get a copy, the buyer gets a copy. So if you print it off, old school, I'm going to print it off, I'm going to have this available to you. You need two of them. One signed by all parties for you and one signed by all parties for them. If you load it through Docs Plus and you do the e-signing session, obviously they will have the e-sign session of the completed document and you don't have to give them a physical copy. But there are lots of people out there that won't use e-sign, Docs Plus, any of that stuff, right? All right, makes sense? Come back next week, we'll do it all again. All right.
Same time, same